Now we come to the inspirational speech for today. Luis Macias, a CEO and founder of GrainChain. Luis is an innovator and entrepreneur that has nearly 20 years of experience designing, inventing, and implementing technological solutions in the government, agriculture, and insurance sectors. He has spent the last 6 years developing viable agricultural solutions that would become silosis and later grain chain. His pioneering leadership ensures that grain chain will remain the leader in its market space. So let's welcome Luis to deliver his inspirational speech. A round of warm applause, please.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Here at GrainChain, we've spent the last 6 to 10 years understanding what it really takes to digitize an agricultural supply chain. We've worked in many different countries trying to understand where and what do we have to do to not only advance technology, but make it meaningful. The reality is that the agricultural sector around the world is in dire need of full digitization. We've done this in the financial markets, the medical, and in many other markets. And there are many technologies that we're really trying to figure out how to apply to an area where connectivity, where technology, and sometimes where education is very limited. How do we actually implement the idea of inclusion when the limitations are great? What we've really found overall is not only does technology improve our ability to operate, but the ability to not have the finance side to it changes elements tremendously. What does financial inclusion really mean? Financial inclusion to many of our farmers mean the ability to actually create and grow and live above just sustaining yourself to the next season. How do we get there? How do we apply this kind of technology in areas that are extremely challenging? We not only have the limitations of connectivity, of education, but we also have the barriers of trust. How do we change the barriers of trust on both sides of the spectrum? The reality is that when a person accepts the fact that they want to go into financial inclusion, they still have the barrier of trust against the institutions that in the past have maybe not been as effective to them. So how do we get there? What do? Our first real aspect is traceability, is understanding where things come from, how do they get there, and what happens. One of the biggest barriers we've seen in the industry has been that financial institutions want to lend, that different types of partners want to participate in the supply chain, but they don't understand or they don't see how they can make this possible. How do you lend money to an industry where the risk is higher and the reward is lower? There's a social and absolute need to be able to push this down to our small farmers who survive off of very, very, very thin margins. We start creating technology that allows us to push not only the information directly from the stakeholder, but it allows the financial institutions, the insurance institutions, the exporters, and the buyers of these products to understand that these products are not only handled properly, but that they are being done in a way that excludes child labor, that excludes areas in bad actors that don't want to do things correctly. As our partners at MasterCard had said earlier, in a lot of these industries, the biggest gainers are the middlemen, the intermediaries. The people who gain the most are those people who take advantage of those situations. When we start giving them digital tools that allow them to prove that things are there, and digital tools that allow the stakeholders, the buyers, and the also financial institutions to understand what's going on, money starts flowing. We've been able to work tirelessly in different areas that allow us to understand how to get these technologies to our partners, how to educate small communities to understand that technology is not only friendly, but there to help. That is the first process of true ability. Transparency is our second step. Being able to understand that our exporters, our buyers, and our financial institutions are not taking advantage and are trying to do a positive thing. That our farmers are working hard to do great crops, get things to the right locations, and participate in a positive manner. Here at GrainChain, we've been working tremendously in creating very simple and effective tools that allow for not only the understanding of the processes of the farmers, but also the process of the actual participants beyond the farmer. Understanding what logistics are, understanding how to get things there. We've worked hard to hand over not only a shield, but a sword to our small agricultural partners. When we talk about a shield, is that we give them the ability to communicate what the quality of their product is. We give them the ability to have historical data to be able to go to financial institutions and be able to grow their inclusion when it comes to loans, when it comes to performance. But we give them a sword that allows all of the participants around to understand that they have quality products, but it gives the farmer an education of what their product is worth. When an actual farmer knows that his product is worth more on the market, and we start exposing them to those markets, we give them the ability to not sell at the bottom dollar to the intermediary. We give them logistics management tools that allow them to move their product into better markets, into markets where they're going to be paid more. And that gives us the ability to create digital records on a blockchain ledger that allows them to see not only what they've done, but what they can do and what they can make. That starts changing the dynamic of where we are. We start building out not only a true ability of them to defend themselves, but a knowledge of the fact for the industry that they've produced something, that they've produced quality, and that they can continue to produce this quality. In order to break this vicious cycle, in order to create true sustainability, we need to educate and we need to give them tools that have a very low cost and a very low implementation. We need to get them out of a cycle that allows them to not only participate in the formal financial institutions, but also gives them the ability to truly get paid well. How do you turn a small community of farmers and how do you get them into financial inclusion? We've started to create tools with digital wallets, with minimal viable information for them to be able to start get paid digitally, so that they can not only store their money, but have a safe place for their money. What happens in our cash economy when people get paid in cash? Not only are they susceptible to negative situations, but they're also in a situation where it is harder to maintain that. How do we make it easy for financial institutions to lend to these partners, to these farmers, to these participants in what we eat every day? We give them a very easy method to not only enter the financial markets, but we give them a true reality of what they've done in the past, a digital record of not only the progress that they've made, but we also give them rewards to where if they become part of these financial systems, they start to learn, they start to get education, they start to get historicals, and they become a powerful partner. Here at GrainChain, our sole focus has been not only to create true financial inclusion, but to enhance the position of the small farmer to be able to defend themselves, but also to be able to take advantage of the true nature of their products, to get full payment for what they are doing, and to understand that technology is not only their friend, but it is also the key in the tool to advance them into the next world. We truly are honored to be in this industry, and we're making changes that not only are going to change the world, but they're going to change individual lives. I really thank you for this time, and everyone at GrainChain thanks you for participating in this webinar.
I would like to ask each of the panelists where they see the most exciting opportunities generated by digital technologies, but also I would like to gather from the panelists where they see the most challenging aspect, or the greatest challenges in order to extend digital technology in the chain. So Luis, floor is yours.
Thank you for your time. Digital technology is an interesting concept. We understand that we need to apply digital technology into agriculture in an urgent need. We can accomplish so much by being able to understand where the products are coming from, understand how to pay our individual stakeholders, create an efficiency in not only where it comes to the process, but also the finance world. And all of this is extremely attractive. We all understand that by making everything more efficient, people are going to get more money and things are going to become more clear, and we're going to be able to apply the same concepts we do to other industries. The realities are that digital technology is not something easy to implement in many regions of the world. You can even take a country like the United States that is highly developed and has an infrastructure. And when you start applying digital technology into the agricultural world, you have limitations. You have connectivity limitations. You have limitations of being able to implement and educate into some of the new worlds. What we found is going into areas with less education and less development and less infrastructure, we have two different opportunities and two different areas of extreme need. One is that an area that does not have any technology is ripe for disruption. It's ripe for implementation, where you can implement something that is extremely centered and useful. But where that comes in is the lack of infrastructure and education. And the focus has to be tremendously on educating and being able to have boots on the ground. The reality is you cannot really implement these technologies without boots on the ground, without people being able to teach not only what inclusion means, teach what finance means. With GrainChain, we've done an excellent job in Central America of being able to implement not only simple technologies to be able to include into banking systems, include into overall transparency and digital systems, but we've been able to really educate all of the participants. Digital technology is nothing without the tools that are built with that in mind, with the ability to create a very easy implementation. But without digital technology, I do see sustainability not existing in the future. I see us being able to do these things by being very, very hands-on, by being very in-depth in what we're doing, and by being able to educate all of the different participants. GrainChain's doing a really, really good job of being able to focus on the individual and on the individual person.
Now I would like to talk a little bit more about the challenges, and in particular the challenges in onboarding farmers. So kind of really the last or the first mile, depending on how you see the chain. Okay. Luis, how did you make progress on overcoming some of these challenges? Or
I mean, I think it's obvious that our last mile problem is our biggest problem. I think that when working on the ground and seeing what's going on, is that the only method of success is by local interaction. Us being able to understand that we have to crawl before we can fly, that we have to crawl before we can even walk. Understanding that by involving a lot of the local participants to work with the digitization, involving education in schools. You know, a lot of the groups that we're working with are teaching the kids about using smartphones, teaching the families and inviting the parents to come with them in some of these very, very rural school environments. We've been able to create tools that work offline and online so that they don't feel the frustration of not understanding their information or their wallets because they can't connect to 3G. And we understand that while cellular is a very widespread technology, we've been implementing a lot of low frequency mesh to be able to get them to to be able to understand basic information and be able to move forward. Our challenge is great, but our technology is also very, very advanced. You know, creating simple use technology to collect simple data, start to crawl, and start giving them the benefits. If we think that we're going to eliminate all of the intermediaries and middlemen in one day, we're extremely incorrect. They own a lot of the passage routes. They own a lot of the work that goes in. What we do is we empower a lot of the cooperatives and groups to be able to gain finance, but through the use of our smart contracts, we only allow individual farmers to access that finance. We don't allow the groups to touch that finance. What the reality is that when we're working with large sums of people, because they're very small farmers, so you're looking at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, local banks don't have the ability to underwrite this kind of work. So by creating automated underwriting systems, by creating process automation when they receive and requiring the data to be inputted directly from the source, we start becoming more successful by giving them tools on their smartphones that allow them to collect this data without internet connectivity. And when they come and they give the product, that data is pushed into the network, we start crawling. When we go a little further and we start giving them the ability to be connected, you know, I think one of the biggest problems is not only power, is not only access to phones, but how much does a service cost? If the service is something that's unapproachable, then you need to give them a network that they can connect to where they don't have to pay the connectivity, low frequency Wi-Fi. We've applied and used many different technologies to be able to enable this kind of access. This last mile is the imperative mile. I've been told by many groups around the world that this last mile is an impossible feat. And we've slowly been able to crawl into capturing the correct data, being able to qualify the data so that we can de-risk the lending. I know that most people want to do the right thing, but they don't have access to do the right thing. By giving them the tools that they can use and they cannot get frustrated with, we have a concept of a big red button. And if it's more complicating than pushing the big red button, they're not going to use the technology frequently. And so we have to understand not only that our audience is limited in connectivity, we have to be able to start crawling by teaching and implementing in small amounts and seeing and creating trust. Because if you're able to prove it in small amounts and you're able to grow, that trust grows. My neighbor was successful with this project. I want to be part of it too. And we create that network effect among all of our different participants. I think the most important part of everything we're doing here is understanding that we're trying to benefit the small farmer who doesn't have access. If we start implementing technology that's benefiting everyone else along the chain, it's going to be positive, but we need to focus on the small participant. By creating a full ecosystem and a full suite of tools that allows everyone to participate, we start opening up the transparency and we start de-risking the loans, but we also start enabling these farmers to really be able to have technology that they can use every day, whether they have connection or not, and they're able to implement.
Geoffrey from Tanzania and David from the US who ask what digital tools will need to be adopted in the coffee supply chain to improve the farmer's negotiating position.
As far as our experience is that there's two ends of this table. There's the negotiation between the farmer and the cooperative or the aggregator, and that there's negotiation out into the exporting world. And one of the big things that we've been focusing on has been giving the farmers tools to be able to enter into negotiations with their individual cooperatives. Just because they belong to a cooperative doesn't mean that's the only source that they can sell it to. And what we see a lot of the times is that these members of these cooperatives will go out and sell to other areas because they get a better price. And sometimes it hurts the cooperative and sometimes it benefits the farmer. If we give them tools that allow them to understand and secure forward contracts, if we give them tools that give them the ability to know that they're going to get paid a certain base amount, and even create digital aspects to where they can get premiums once the coffee is sold, then it gives them the ability to lift up their own cooperatives and not go out and sell into the street. A lot of the times we see the urgency of the need of them selling their products for money now, when they know that if they take it to the cooperative, they're going to have to pay their loans back. They're going to have to wait for a while for it to get sold and then maybe get some money in the future. When we start creating forward contracts that guarantee them money and we attach financial instruments to those contracts, they're able to get their money right away and they're able to do things in a lot more agility. It takes education and it takes time. So if we want to ever see farm gate prices to where the end exporter is buying from specific farmers because they're doing great jobs, we need to encourage this kind of activity where we involve the local finance, where we involve local insurance, and we involve them in these contracts that are overly simplified in a digital platform that allow them to negotiate at the first level so that they can eventually in the future negotiate at the second level.
Yeah, Luis, I mean, building on this, I mean, one word that we haven't talked a lot about is traceability. So we have a question from Stephen from Kenya that asks, how do you tackle the challenge of traceability of coffee using technology? It seems to me that a lot of what we are talking about needs to build on traceability.
Absolutely. And I think that one leads to the other. In order for us to have an external market, they need to ensure what they're buying. In order for us to be able to sell to anyone outside of the local group, we need to ensure what's going on. We need to give them free and efficient tools to be able to track what they're doing and be able to push that on to the secondary party for that ever to be a consideration. Because if you're going to buy specific types of coffee, and especially when we start talking about premium coffee and coffee that gets a little more money, then we have to be able to enable the trust for the buyer, for the end user, for the exporter, for that to happen, for Farmgate to happen, for us to get higher revenue. We need to be able to give these tools to be able to trace what they're doing and how they're doing it. One of the big initiatives that we've done is created free tools for the farmers to be able to register what they're using, where their location is, and what it is, to be able to create nanolots and understand what's coming in without connectivity, so that when they go to their aggregator or they go to their seller or they go to their people, that information is automatically synced and brought up. It's a process that takes time, but creating these types of tools allow us to really, really be able to create a traceable product, which creates a market, which creates more money, which creates the ability to create these final contracts.
I'd like to ask all the panelists to answer like with a 10-second to a question that came in from Marcos from Brazil. Marcos is asking, what is the knowledge that most of the small producers lack that will be a game changer? Give me one word.
I can say that their value, the value of their product when they bring it to market is the biggest tool that they could have.